You won't believe what's hidden behind the facade of this seemingly normal house. Because inside, a dark secret lurks that most will never see coming. This is a story of silence, pain, and a brave middle child who endured unimaginable abuse and then found the strength to break free. If you think you know what trauma looks like, think again. What happens in this house is shocking, but the real story is about hope, survival, and fighting back against a cycle of darkness. And stay tuned, because later, you'll discover the moment that changed everything, the secret that could finally bring justice. If you've ever wondered how someone can survive such horrors and find a way out, this story will stay with you. Before we dive in, drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from, and hit that like button if you believe even in the darkest places, a little light can grow. This story isn't just about pain, it's about resilience, and you won't want to miss what happens next. I looked around the house. To most people, it looked normal. The walls were clean, the floor shiny, and everything seemed fine. But I knew better. Inside, this house was different. Inside, it was full of secrets and fear. I am the middle child. My name doesn't matter. No one remembers it. I am just the boy who stays quiet. I watch everything. I listen. I hide what I feel. My parents are not kind. They smile outside, but inside, they are cold and angry. They say they love us, but their words are sharp. Sometimes they hit us when we do not do what they want. Sometimes they yell so loud that I cover my ears. I have learned to stay very still when they are angry. I see my older brother. He tries to stay away from trouble. His eyes are scared. My little sister is still small. She doesn't understand everything. She laughs and plays, but I worry about her. I know the house is not safe for her. Some days, my parents call us a family, but I know they are not kind. They use love and fear like tools. If we do something wrong, they punish us. They make us feel small and guilty. It's like they are playing a game where they are winning and we are losing. I try not to cry. I try not to show my pain, but sometimes I get hurt badly. I hide my bruises under my clothes. I don't tell anyone. I keep my pain inside. I do not want to make them more angry. One day, I saw my sister crying. She was crying because she was scared. I wanted to help her, but I was afraid I might get hurt if I spoke. Instead, I gently wiped her tears and hugged her. That was the only kindness I could give her. No one else did. In this house, love is twisted. It feels like a trap. When I do something wrong, I get punished. When I try to be good, I get ignored or hurt. I want to run away, but I do not know where to go. Sometimes, I hear people outside talking about families. They say families should be happy and safe. But I look at my house and see something very different. I see fear. I see secrets. I see pain. I wonder if it will ever be different. I wonder if I will ever find a way out. For now, I stay silent. I watch. I wait. I hold my pain inside, hoping that one day, things might change. As I sit quietly in my room, I look at the small window. Outside, the world is big and bright. Inside, in our house, darkness hides the truth. But I know one thing. I am not alone. There are others who might understand. Maybe someday, I will find a way to bring light into this house. Maybe someday, I will be brave enough. But for today, I stay quiet. I watch. I listen. And I hope. I woke up early, before the sun was high. The house was quiet, but I knew what came next. Today, I would feel the pain again. I felt my stomach twist and my hands shiver. I always tried to stay still and quiet. If I made no noise, maybe they would forget I was there. I looked around my small room. It was not much, just a bed, a small table, and the wall with a little crack in it. I pressed my hand against the wall. I felt the cold roughness of the paint. I closed my eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. I wanted to be brave. Outside, I heard footsteps. It was my father. His steps were loud and quick. I knew what that meant. He was angry or tired, and soon he would come to us. I swallowed hard and sat very still. Suddenly, the door swung open. My father's face was hard. His eyes looked mean. I felt my heart beat faster. I knew what was coming. He didn't say a word. He just reached out and grabbed my arm. "Get up," he snarled. His voice was rough. I tried not to cry. I knew I had to be brave. I stood up slowly. My legs shook a little, but I made no sound. He pushed me toward the living room. I saw my mother standing there, her face cold. She didn't look at me. She was busy cleaning something, but I knew she watched everything. Sometimes she looked sad, but mostly she looked tired and angry. My father took a belt from the wall. I flinched when I saw it. I knew what was coming. I closed my eyes and tried to think of something good. A memory, a happy thought, anything to hold on to. He hit me hard. It hurt so much I wanted to scream, but I kept quiet. I remembered my promise to myself. Stay still, stay quiet, don't cry. After a few hits, he let go. I bent over, trying to breathe. I felt blood and pain. I didn't cry out. I just looked down and waited for him to leave. My little sister was in her room. I wanted to go to her, but I knew I couldn't. That would make things worse. Instead, I went to my corner and sat on the floor. I pulled my knees close and wrapped my arms around them. Tears slipped down my face, but I hid them quickly. I looked at my hands. They were trembling. I wanted to stop the trembling, but I couldn't. I felt so tired. I wanted to run away, to hide somewhere safe, but there was no safe place in this house, only fear. I remembered something I saw outside once, a boy playing in the street, smiling and laughing. I wished I could be like him. I wanted to be free. I wanted to feel happy, but I knew that happiness was far away. For now, I had to be strong and wait. Later, when the house was still and quiet again, I got up slowly. I wiped my face with my sleeve. I looked in the mirror in the hallway. My face was red and my eyes looked small and sad. I wanted to hide, but I knew I couldn't. I thought about my sister. She was still safe in her room. Maybe she didn't understand everything yet. Maybe she thought this was just how life was. But I knew better. I knew this house was not a good home. It was a place of pain, and I wanted to leave. As I listened, I heard my mother call from the kitchen. "Dinner is ready." I slowly went to eat, feeling heavy inside. My stomach was empty, but my heart was full of worries. After dinner, I sat alone in the corner again. I watched my family, pretending everything was fine. But I knew it was not. Inside, I felt a small fire. A fire that said, "This cannot go on forever." That night, I lay on my bed and looked at the ceiling. I thought about tomorrow. Maybe I could find a way to be stronger. Maybe I could find a small moment of peace. I closed my eyes and made a quiet promise to myself. I would never stop hoping for a better day. Because even in the darkness, I knew there was a tiny light. A light that someday would grow bright enough to show me the way out of this house of shadows. And I promised myself I would find it, no matter how hard it was. Tomorrow was a new day. I would be brave again. I would wait and watch. And maybe, just maybe, I would find a way to be free. I woke up early that morning. The house was quiet. I tried to stay still so no one would wake up and get angry. I heard the clock ticking. It was the only sound I liked. It reminded me that time was passing, even in this dark house. I looked over at my sister. She was still sleeping. Her small face was peaceful, but I knew that inside she was scared. I gently touched her hand. She didn't wake up. I whispered, "It's okay, little one. I promise I will keep you safe." Sometimes I wondered why our family was so mean. Why did they hurt us? I didn't understand. I only knew I had to stay quiet and watch everything. That was the only way to keep myself and my sister safe, for now. Suddenly, I heard footsteps. My father was coming. I quickly sat up and pressed my back against the wall. My heart beat faster. I knew what was coming. I had learned to hide my fear. He entered the room with a bad look. His face was hard, and his hands looked ready to hurt. I didn't say a word. I looked down. My hands were trembling a little, but I kept still. "Get up," he said in a rough voice. I slowly stood. My legs felt weak. I knew I had to be brave. He grabbed my arm and pulled me close. His eyes looked cold. I didn't cry. I didn't fight back. I just looked at him and waited. I knew if I showed my fear too much, it would make him worse. He pushed me out of the room. I followed quietly. I didn't want to make him angrier. I looked at my sister. She was still asleep, unaware of what was happening. Outside, the house was cold. The sun was just rising. I saw the yard through the window. It was small and empty. No one was outside today. I wished I could go there, run away far, far from this place. But I knew I couldn't leave yet. Not without a plan. I had to think. I had to find a way to make things better, even if just a little. In the corner of my mind, I remembered my promise. I promised myself I would stay strong. I promised I would never forget that someday I would find a way to escape, to find a safe place where love is real and hurt is gone. I looked at my sister again. She looked so small and fragile. I wondered how long I could keep her safe, how long I could stay strong. Then I remembered something else. I remembered that even in the darkest house, tiny sparks of hope can grow. Sometimes I saw a little kindness, like when I shared my small piece of bread with my sister, or when I quietly cleaned her scraped knee with water I found. That tiny kindness made me feel like I was still human, like I was still someone who could love, even if everyone around me only hurt. I took a deep breath. I told myself, I will keep watching. I will stay silent. But inside, I am learning. I am waiting for my moment. I am waiting to be brave enough to change everything. And so I stood there, watching the house wake up. Inside, my heart was full of questions and tiny hopes. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew I was still alive. I was still fighting, and I would not forget that one day I would find a way to be free. I woke up early on a cold morning. The house was quiet, but I could still feel the hurt from yesterday. My body was sore, and my head still hurt a little. I didn't want to get up, but I knew I had to. My little sister was still sleeping. She looked peaceful, like she didn't know what was happening outside her dreams. I looked at her and felt a strange mixture of love and sadness. I wanted to protect her, but I couldn't do it all the time. I got up slowly and tiptoed out of my room. The house was dark in the morning, and everything felt heavy inside. I listened carefully. I didn't hear my parents shouting or fighting, so maybe the worst part was over for now. I quietly moved to the kitchen. I looked around and saw that there was no food left for breakfast. We rarely had enough food. Sometimes I'd find a small piece of bread or an apple, and I would hide it, so no one could take it from me or my sister. Suddenly, I remembered what had happened yesterday. My father had yelled at me for not cleaning his shoes good enough. My mother had hit me when I tried to say I was tired. My body still remembered the pain. I clenched my fists and tried not to cry, but I also remembered something else. Last night, I saw a small crack in the wall of the cellar. It was a tiny space between the bricks. I had looked at it for a long time. Maybe, I thought, I can squeeze through that crack and go outside. I knew it was risky. If my parents saw me trying to escape, they would be very angry. Maybe even worse than usual. But I felt a spark inside me, a small wish to be free, even if just for a little while. I took a deep breath. I looked at the crack again. It was small, but I was small too. I got down on my hands and knees and started to crawl toward it. I pushed and squeezed, trying to make myself as small as possible. My heart was beating fast. I was scared, but I kept moving. I thought about my sister. If I could escape, maybe I could find help or at least get far away from this house of pain. When I finally reached the crack, I looked through it. Outside, I could see a little bit of sunlight. The air smelled fresh and different from inside. I felt a tiny hope grow in my chest. Just then, I heard footsteps, my mother's voice calling me. I froze. I knew I didn't have much time. I quickly pushed myself back, just in case she came closer. I sat there for a moment, trying to decide what to do. If I stayed, I might get in more trouble. If I kept trying, I could be caught. But the urge to run and be free was too strong. I looked back at the crack one last time. Then I slowly started to crawl away from it. I knew I couldn't escape today, but I had taken a small step. I had seen a way out. I got up carefully and moved quietly toward my sister's room. She was still sleeping. I promised her I would find a way to protect her someday. I whispered, "Hold on, little one. I'll find a way for us to be safe." As I sat beside her, I felt tired but also a little stronger. I knew I had to be brave. I had to keep quiet and watch. Maybe one day I would find a way out for good. Until then, I would keep my secret and hold on to hope. That morning I learned something important. Even in a dark house, a small hope can grow. It can help me wait for a better day. I didn't know how long it would take, but I knew I had to keep trying. And so I sat quietly next to my sister, dreaming of a day when we could be free. I woke up early. The house was quiet. I listened carefully. No yelling, no footsteps. I knew this was a good moment. I had to be quick. I remembered the plan I made last night. There was a small crack in the cellar wall. It was just big enough. Maybe I could squeeze through. Maybe I could find safety outside. I looked at my sister sleep. She was still little. I wanted to protect her, but I knew I had to leave her behind for now. I whispered softly, "I'll come back for you." I didn't know if I would, but I had to try. Carefully, I moved out of the room. My heart was pounding. I didn't want to wake anyone. I tiptoed past the big creaky door. Every step was slow. I didn't want them to hear me. When I reached the cellar door, I looked around. Everything was still. I pushed the door open a little. I looked inside. The dark space looked scary, but it was the only way out. I took a deep breath. I knelt down and looked at the crack. It was small, but I knew I could do it. I pushed myself in. My arms scraped the rough edges. I moved slowly, trying not to get stuck. The wall was cold and hard. As I squeezed through, I felt the outside air. It was cool and fresh. I was free, but I was also scared. What if I couldn't find my way? What if they caught me? I looked around. I saw trees, open sky, and a dirt path. I took a step forward. I felt brave. I was leaving the house that hurt me so much. I wanted a new life. But then I heard a sound behind me, a voice. I turned quickly. It was my sister. She was standing at the door of the cellar, confused. "Where are you going?" she asked softly. I looked at her. My heart hurt. I wanted to tell her to stay safe. I wanted to bring her with me, but I knew I couldn't. I said, "I have to go. I will come back. Stay safe here." She looked worried. "Will I see you again?" she asked. I nodded. "Yes, I promise. Be brave, little sister." I turned away. I didn't want to cry. I just wanted to run away fast. I ran down the dirt path. I didn't look back. I told myself I was doing this for both of us. Outside, everything looked different. The sky was blue. The trees swayed in the wind. It felt like freedom. But I also felt lonely. I was alone now. I had to find a safe place. As I walked, I remembered the scars on my sister's arm. She inherited some of the pain I had hidden inside. I felt sad. I wished I could take her with me, but I couldn't. I kept walking, thinking about what to do next. I knew the house had many secrets. I knew the people inside weren't kind. But I also knew I didn't want to go back. I didn't know what would happen next. I only knew I had to keep moving. I had to find help. And maybe, someday, I could return for my sister. I promised myself I would never forget her. That was the start of my escape. I didn't look back. I just kept walking toward a new chance, a new life. Because I knew I deserved better. And I knew I had to try. I woke up early in the morning. The house was quiet. I looked around my small room. I could see the tiny crack in the wall. It was still there. That crack might be my way out. I had been thinking about it for days. I gently got out of bed. I moved quietly so no one would hear me. I remembered what I had planned. I wanted to see what was outside. I needed to be careful. First, I looked at my sister. She was still sleeping. She looked so peaceful, but I knew she had scars too. I thought about how I promised to keep her safe. I touched her hand softly. "I will find a way," I whispered, even though she was still asleep. Then I took a deep breath. I went to the corner of the room. I had hidden a small cloth and a bit of bread under my pillow. I grabbed them quietly. If I was going outside, I needed some food and something to cover myself. Next, I moved to the crack in the wall. I carefully pushed aside some old bricks. The crack was just big enough for me to crawl through. I looked outside. It was dark, but not as dark as inside the house. I saw a narrow path. It looked like it led away from the house. Maybe I could follow it and find safety. I took one more look at my sister. I was sad to leave her, but I knew I had to try. Maybe I would come back. Maybe I could find help or someone who could stop the bad things happening here. I pushed my body into the crack. It was tight, but I squeezed through. I got outside. The air was cold and fresh. I felt a small breeze on my face. It was different from the stale air inside the house. I looked around. There were trees and bushes. The path was quiet. I took a step forward. My heart was pounding, but I kept moving. I didn't want to turn back yet. Suddenly, I remembered my promise. I told my sister I would return. I promised I'd find safety for us. I looked back at the house, small and dark behind me. Then I turned and kept walking down the path. Outside, everything looked bigger and brighter. I felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe this was my chance to find freedom. Maybe I could stop the pain and the fear. But I also knew it was dangerous. The outside world was new and unfamiliar. I didn't know what might happen next. I just knew I couldn't go back inside that house. As I walked, I thought about my sister. I hoped she would be okay. I hoped she would find a way to heal. I thought about the house inside my mind. It was still there, full of shadows and secrets. But I was outside now. I was free for a little while. I kept moving forward. I didn't look back. I had taken a small step toward hope. I knew I still had a long way to go. But for now, I was outside, and that made me feel like maybe I could find a better life. And I promised myself I would do everything I could to make that happen. I stood outside the house, my heart pounding. It was quiet, but I could feel the weight of everything inside. I knew my sister was still in there, hidden away. I had escaped for a little while, but I didn't feel safe yet. I looked at the small hole in the wall near the cellar. It was dark and tight, but it was my way out. I remembered the day I found it. I was exploring, trying to find a place I could hide if things got bad again. The hole was small, but I had squeezed through it once before. I had told myself I could use it to run away someday. Now I was ready. I took a deep breath. "This is my chance," I whispered. I crawled slowly into the hole, feeling the rough edges scrape my skin. The dark was all around me. I kept moving carefully, trying not to make noise. I could hear my breathing and the faint sound of the house behind me. Once I was outside, I felt a little bit free. The sun was bright and the air was fresh. For a moment, I thought I could forget everything inside that house. I looked around and saw trees and the road leading away. I wanted to run far, far away. But then I remembered my sister. She was still inside. She was little and innocent. She didn't deserve this kind of life. My stomach hurt when I thought about her scars and pain. I wanted to go back and get her. I wanted to save her. I moved closer to the house. I saw her in my mind, small, quiet, scared. I knew I couldn't leave her behind. Not now. I had promised to keep her safe. Suddenly, I heard a loud noise behind me. It was the door opening. My parents were home. I froze. My heart started to race. I wasn't ready to go back, but I knew I couldn't stay out here forever. I looked around quickly. I saw a bush nearby. I ducked behind it and held my breath. I watched as my parents came out, shouting and angry. They didn't see me. I felt a rush of fear, but also a strange feeling inside. I had to be brave. I knew I couldn't hide forever. I had to decide what to do next. I thought about my sister again. She was counting on me. If I went back, I might get hurt again. But if I ran away completely, I couldn't protect her. It was a hard choice. I took a deep breath and decided. I would go back inside, quietly. I would find my sister. I wouldn't leave her alone. I wanted to make sure she was safe, even if it meant risking myself. I slowly stood up from behind the bush. My legs felt shaky, but I moved carefully toward the house. I kept quiet, listening to every sound. The house looked normal from the outside, but inside, I knew terrible things were happening. As I reached the door, I paused. I looked at the window where I knew my sister slept. I saw her tiny figure in the shadow. She was curled up, trying to hide her scars. My heart hurt. I gently pushed the door open. It made a soft creak, but no one heard me. I slipped inside and moved quietly through the dark hallways. My eyes searched for her. Finally, I found her in her room. She was crying softly. Her tiny hands wiped at her face, and I saw the scars on her arms. I wanted to hold her and tell her everything would be okay, but I knew I had to be careful. "I'm here," I whispered, kneeling beside her. "I've come to get you out." She looked at me with tired eyes. She didn't say a word, but I saw she trusted me. I gently took her hand and helped her stand. We moved quietly again, back toward the cellar. On the way, I looked at her tiny face. I saw the pain and fear, but also a little hope. Maybe she believed I could save her, or maybe she just wanted to believe. When we reached the hole in the wall, I helped her squeeze through first. Then I crawled after her, feeling the rough edges cut my hands. As we made our way outside, I looked back at the house. The house was still dark, but I knew its secrets. Now I had my sister with me. But I also knew the danger wasn't over. My parents could come back at any moment. I had to be quick. I looked at my sister and said, "Hold tight. We'll find a safe place. We'll be okay." As we stepped into the open, the sun was shining, and the world felt big and full of possibility. But deep inside, I knew the real fight was still ahead. I had to protect her. I had to find a way to end this cycle. And I promised myself, no matter what, I would keep her safe and stop the darkness from hurting anyone else. That was how I started again, thinking about the future and what I could do to make it better. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready. Because I was her big brother, and I would never give up on her. I walk through the broken house carefully. It is quiet, but I can still hear the faint sound of my parents talking in the next room. I know they are angry. I know I must stay hidden. I'm trying to be very small and quiet. Today, I saw my sister sitting on the floor. She was crying softly. She had a new cut on her hand. It was bleeding a little. I wanted to help her, but I knew I could not. If I moved, they might see me. They might punish us both. I knelt down near her. I whispered, "It will be okay, little one." She looked up at me with big, sad eyes. I gently took her hand and looked at the cut. I wished I could take her pain away. Suddenly, I heard footsteps. "My parents are coming." I quickly told her, "Stay quiet. Don't move." I looked around for something to cover her wound. There was an old cloth on the floor. I carefully wrapped it around her hand. My heart was pounding. I knew I had to hide her before they got here. I gently picked her up and moved her into a small closet under the stairs. It was dark and tight. She snuggled into my arms. I closed the door softly and whispered, "Stay very still." I listened as my parents entered the house. Their voices were loud and angry. I could hear them shouting. I stayed very still. I kept my eyes closed. I wanted to make sure they did not see us. After a little while, I heard them leave. They went into another room. I waited a few more moments. Then I slowly opened the closet door. My sister looked out with her big eyes. She was still safe. I gently brushed her hair. I whispered, "I will protect you. I promise." My sister nodded slowly. I knew I could not stay here much longer. I had to find a way out. I had to find safety for both of us. I looked around the house. Every day, I find small ways to be brave. Today, I helped my sister hide. It was not much, but it was something. It made me feel a little stronger. I looked at her and said, "We will find a way. We will be free someday." She smiled a little, even though she was scared. I smiled back. I know I must keep going. I quietly moved her out of the closet. I held her hand and whispered, "Come on, let's find a better place." We tiptoed past the dark hallways. We knew the house is full of secrets and pain, but inside us, there is hope. I think about the outside world, a world where there is no fear, no hurt. I dream of escaping and finding that place. I want to run away from this house and never come back. But I also know I cannot forget my sister. She is my family. I must protect her. I will keep her safe no matter what. Today, I learned that even in the darkest house, small acts of kindness and courage can happen. I will hold on to that. I will stay strong, and I will never stop trying to find a better life for us both. Because I believe someday We will be free. I woke up early in the house. The morning light peeked through the small window. I felt tired and heavy. My body still ached from what had happened yesterday. But I knew today might be different. I had to be careful. I looked around quietly. My sister was still asleep in her bed. Her little face looked peaceful, but I knew she carried scars just like me. Sometimes I wondered if she remembered the pain or if she forgot it all. I gently touched her hand and whispered, "Wake up, little one. We have to be brave today." She opened her eyes slowly and looked at me. She didn't smile, but I saw her trust. I nodded and got ready to move. We needed to find a way out, again. The house was cold and dark. It always felt like a trap. We had learned to hide our feelings and stay quiet. If we made a sound or moved wrong, our parents would be angry. That's why I always watched them carefully, waiting for the right moment. Today I remembered the cellar crack. It was small, but I had crawled through it before. It was a tiny opening in the wall, near the back door. If I could get there, maybe I could slip outside. Maybe I could find safety or someone who could help us. I whispered to my sister, "Stay close. We might try to go through the crack again. Be brave." She nodded again, her small face full of trust. I took a deep breath and moved softly toward the back of the house. I looked around to make sure no one was watching. The house was silent. I knew my parents might be sleeping or maybe watching us from somewhere, so I kept my steps slow. When I reached the wall near the cellar, I knelt down. The crack was just big enough for me to crawl through. I reached out my hand carefully. It was dirty and cold, but I had to do it. I pushed my body through the small opening. It was tight, but I made it. Outside the air was fresh but cold. I looked around. The yard was quiet. No one was near. I gently helped my sister climb out after me. She crawled through the crack, and I caught her before she fell. We ran across the yard quickly. I kept looking around, feeling scared but also hopeful. Maybe outside, I could find a safe place or someone who could help us. Maybe we could be free from the house of pain. But I knew the house was never far behind in my mind. I remembered the secret cracks and hidden places. I knew that running away was dangerous. I had to be careful and stay strong. As we reached the street, I looked back at the house. It looked big and dark. I felt a strange mix of fear and hope. I whispered to my sister, "We're out now. We can find safety somewhere. We just have to keep going." We started walking down the quiet street. The outside world felt different from the house. It was not full of fear. But I knew I had to be smart. We needed a plan, a place to hide, and someone we could trust. I held my sister's hand tight. I promised myself that I would protect her. No matter what, I would try to stop the cycle of pain. I wanted us to be free and safe. Even outside, I knew this was just the beginning. There might be more dangers ahead, but I also saw hope. I saw that we could be strong. We could find a new life without fear. I looked down at her and said softly, "We'll be okay." I promise. And I knew deep inside that I had to keep fighting. For her, for me, for a better future. I wake up in a quiet house. It feels strange. Everything is still. I know this might be the day I leave, or maybe not. I look at my sister sleeping on her bed. She is still small. Her face is peaceful, but I see the scars on her skin. I remember how she got them. I remember how I tried to protect her. I quietly get up. I don't want to wake her. I tiptoe past the rooms. I find my small bag hidden in a corner. Inside, I put a few things: a piece of bread, a little water, and a small cloth. These are my supplies. I am going to try to leave today. I want to find safety outside. My heart beats fast. I feel scared, but also brave. I think about my sister. I know I can't leave her behind. I promise myself I will come back for her someday. I open the door very slowly. The house is still. It is quiet, but I can hear the distant sounds of the outside world. I step outside into the sunlight. It feels warm. For a moment, I breathe deep. This is freedom, I think. I am finally leaving the house that made me feel afraid. I walk down the street. I look around. Everything is different from the house. There are trees and cars and people. I feel small among all these big things, but I keep going. I want to find help or a place where I can be safe. Suddenly, I hear a loud voice behind me. I turn around. It's my father. His face is angry. He has found me. "Where are you going?" he yells. His voice makes my stomach tighten. I want to run, but I stand still. "I want to go," I say quietly. "I want to be safe." He steps closer. "You can't leave," he says. "You belong here. You have to stay." His words are cold. I feel tears in my eyes. I want to escape, but I know I can't fight him now. I look at my father. My mind races. I remember my sister's face. I remember her scars. I remember what I promised. I decide to stay calm. I say, "I'm sorry. I just want to be safe. Please let me go." He looks angry. He pushes me back. I stumble a little. The world around me feels big and scary. I want to cry, but I hold my tears. I tell myself I must be strong. Suddenly, I see a kind face. A stranger is walking toward me. She is an older woman. She looks at us carefully. "What's happening?" she asks softly. My father steps back. "Nothing," he says quickly. "Just a boy trying to leave." His voice sounds harsh. The woman kneels beside me. "Are you okay?" she asks. I nod slowly. I want to tell her everything, but I am afraid. She gently takes my hand. "Come with me," she says. "You don't have to stay here. You can be safe with me." Her voice makes me think of kindness I have never known. I look at my father. He is angry and shouting, but I know I can't stay. I look at the woman again. I feel a little hope. Maybe she can help me. I nod once more and go with her. I feel a small spark of hope inside me. I am leaving the house of fear. I am stepping into a new world. A world where I might find safety. And maybe, just maybe, I will find a way to help my sister too. As we walk away, I look back. I see the house behind us. It is dark and full of shadows. I know I won't forget what happened there, but I also know I am not going to let it rule my life anymore. I hold the lady's hand tightly. I am ready to start a new life, one where I can be kind, brave, and free. And I promise myself, I will come back someday. I will come back for my sister. I will break the cycle of pain, because even in the darkest house, a little light can grow, and I am that light now.